Hello and welcome to the Hivemind After Hours podcast. It has been a few months since we last did one of these. Today, Justin and myself are joined by Mikey, the vocalist of Written by Wolves. How are you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me. This is rad. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. Your guys' new album, The Lighthouse, is coming out in a couple days as of recording this, or I believe tomorrow in New Zealand time zone.
In New Zealand time, it's tomorrow, but
zone,
yeah, in your world, it's you've got to wait just slightly longer.
Yeah. We have a couple questions that we want to ask about the album and about the writing process and the time since secrets, basically, and just in general about the music scene. So yeah, thank you again for joining us. If you want to go ahead and follow us at the Hivemind on social media, at Hivemind Radio _ on Instagram and Twitter, Hivemind Radio on YouTube, and Hivemind Recap Podcast on Spotify. I believe you guys are just Written by Wolves on most social media.
It's pretty easy to find us. If you type in Written by Wolves on pretty much everything, you're gonna find us. Luckily, no one else has claimed that name yet, so we're still somewhat exclusive.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
So Jake and I, before this, we tested some audio stuff, and we came to the conclusion that it's a weird full circle moment where we're at, because Written by Wolves is what got us kind of both talking about the music that we kind of like. So to have you and synonymously the band to discuss, because we've been fans ever since Lights came out, which is a while ago.
Man. You guys are proper OGs. That's right.
I think it was at some point in 2017 that.
Yeah.
At some point, that's when we both figured out, hey, this Written by Wolves band is pretty good, and we've been on the train ever since.
Dude, that's amazing. That makes me so happy to hear. Thank you so much.
Us finding out about you guys predates any of this podcast or even our group chat that we had together. This was when we were just gaming friends that happened to occasionally share interest in the same music, and we would just send each other random songs on Twitter.
Wow, that's cool, man. That's really cool.
Anyways, with that out of the way, let's talk about The Lighthouse, the new album, the second album that you guys have released. Although, do you guys consider it the second album or the third? Because technically the Collab Project came out during the pandemic as well.
Look, we still call it the second album. Sorry, this is still album number 2. I kind of essentially the Collab Project is an EP, but as far as I see it, the Collab Project is it's more than an album. It's more than an EP. It's a mental health initiative, and so for us, the Collab Project is an ongoing thing. It's going to kind of always be a part of the band, and there will be, various iterations of the Collab Project. We don't kind of call it. Yeah, I suppose if anything, it's an EP. But really, it's kind of something bigger that kind of is ongoing and kind of never really has a kind of closed book on it. The Lighthouse is album number 2, and that's where we're at.
Awesome. So, Justin, I feel like you've done a little bit more of the deep dive into the album than I've had the chance to so far. So I'll let you.
Well, it may or may not have been the only thing that I've been listening to much this week. Full transparency, we did get the album early just so we can have an idea on what we're talking about. Also, so this can release around the same time the album drops. So those that have already gotten to listen to it, I hope you guys are enjoying it, because the album was really, really good. I loved pretty much all the songs that dropped on the album. As far as I'm aware, it's a conceptual follow-up to Secrets that was released back in 2019. Were there any ideas from Secrets that coalesced into the Lighthouse, and any ideas from the Secrets that you guys couldn't do during that album cycle that were now possible in this album cycle?
Look, I think for us and for me in particular, the Lighthouse is kind of like a continuation, but I suppose a progression from Secrets. So Secrets was essentially a concept album as well, but the whole idea behind that album was trying to talk about the things that we don't like talking about, talking about the things that we're too scared to talk about, talking about the things that we find too hard to talk about, and trying to sort of, I suppose, change that idea of being able to bring those things out into the open. Whereas the Lighthouse kind of takes it further and goes to the next step and it kind of, so the whole idea of the Lighthouse, and if you listen to it from start to finish, you kind of get the full story. But really, the idea is about, it talks and it works with and plays on the idea of home, and what is home for you. You know, not necessarily like a physical place that you live, or anything like that, but the place, or the state of mind, or whatever it is that makes you feel comfortable and safe and at ease. And I suppose I kind of started with that idea of home, and then looked at what is it that we do, like how is it that we find our way back home when we are in our darkest places, and when we're lost, and when, you know, when we feel alone. So what is it that guides us back home? What is it that kind of brings us out of these dark places, and what is it that kind of gets us back to that place of kind of comfort and ease and safety? And so that's where the concept of the Lighthouse was born, you know, like, and so essentially the album sort of goes through all of the kind of dark places that I kind of found myself in the last couple of years, or places in which I kind of saw the world going, and then kind of looks at that turning point of what it is that you kind of find to be your lighthouse, and kind of what it is then that you continue on to be able to kind of shed these negative kind of these things and these kind of dark places. Like, how do you get out of that, and kind of where do you go, and what is the process after that? So that's really where the idea of the Lighthouse was born. It kind of continues on from Secrets, but it's a progression. And I think musically as well, like it kind of, it's certainly a progression from Secrets, and it's probably, I suppose, for us, we kind of looked at a way of going, okay, what have we done before, and what can we do now? Like, where is it, you know, where can we take this sound? Where can we take our songwriting? Like, what have we not done before, and let's see if we can get it into an album and into some new songs. So that's kind of where this album is. It's kind of, I mean, for me, it feels like, you know, something, you know, predominantly we tried to make, you know, every song new and different, and kind of different to anything we'd done before. But we also tried to make sure that when you listen to it, you know that it's written by Wolf straight away. But also then I tried to tell an entire story, you know, about the Lighthouse. So I just kind of hope it kind of can do for others what it's kind of done for us and done for me over the last 2 years.
I was definitely able to pick up on those connecting elements about, especially with the Lighthouse being in the back half of the album as the title track. Like,
yeah,
it clicked for me when I was listening to that song, and I was like, okay, I get it now. Like, I get what all the songs before it were like kind of building up to. And then the last stretch of songs was like Take Me Home and Altar. Just, definitely. It solidified the concept very well as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, and it is designed to kind of tell that story, and as it continues, and you know, I suppose with any story, it's not overly clear until you kind of do get to that kind of middle half, back half. But that's kind of how it's meant to work. That you kind of, you know, it starts dark and it starts heavy and it starts, you know, with all the things that kind of, I suppose, the issues that I was playing with and were kind of going around in my head, and then kind of to that idea of what's the turning point. And when you find that turning point, then what happens? Mm-hmm. So that's the story we're trying to tell, and I'm really glad that you picked up on that. It kind of, look, I know you know, it's not necessarily, and I suppose music is, you know, music's this amazing thing. Whilst I've written it like that, and I've written this story that kind of does go from start to finish, and it means a specific thing, it doesn't need to mean that to you. Like, it can mean whatever it needs to for you. You can, I'd prefer it if you take your own meaning rather than kind of, you know, feel like you need to kind of find the same one as me, because that's not what music's about. But, you know, honestly, obviously, also, I want you to be able to sit and listen to, you know, a specific track and not feel like you're not getting the whole vibe by not listening to the whole album. So, I mean, I suppose that's the tricky part when you're trying to make it, when you do decide to kind of make, I suppose, a concept album, is, you know, ensuring that people can go and listen to track number 8 and still vibe, you know, and feel like that's still, you know, they're not just getting like one little piece of the puzzle. So, look, you know, it's kind of almost out in the world. It's like one of the most terrifying times ever in a musician's sort of life, I suppose, when this thing that you've worked on for 2 years or so is now almost in the world. So, look, we're excited, we're pumped, and we can't wait for everyone to hear it. But it's terrifying.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
Were you guys like storytellers, or have you done any like story writing before writing and creating music?
Look, not so much. Look, I mean, lyrics and kind of and telling a story through lyricism has always kind of been something that I've loved to do. So I suppose that's just been something that within this band has kind of progressed and become a bigger part of the band. I think, but that also when we started this band, the whole idea was to do stuff that we'd never done before. Like that's kind of how the sound was created, to kind of take everything we loved about music and to try and smash it into one somewhat cohesive sound. And that was kind of designed. We did that because we wanted to push ourselves, and it's hard being in a band, and we've all been in enough bands in our lives that when this one started, we were like, if we're going to do this thing again, then we really need to do something that's going to keep us, I suppose, challenged and kind of really excited about it. And so just the storytelling element is just a whole nother aspect of that. So, obviously within the songwriting, we decided to push ourselves. And then kind of, I suppose, the continuation of that is going, all right, well, let's try and tell stories. Let's try and do this and kind of make concept albums, which when you get to the, you're kind of when you start out on something like this, you're kind of standing at the bottom of the mountain going, what the hell are we going to write about? And how do we, how do we do this? And luckily this one kind of came together nicely. Like it was an amazing process. And one that was pretty incredible to be a part of. Like I think when we got that, when we were in LA, when we got the album finished, and it was like we kind of, there was this real sense of we'd made this thing that was really quite special, which excites me. And I think that's the beauty of this band, is I get this opportunity to keep sort of pushing myself and working out what to do next. And it, there's no real limit there. And I think, that kind of excites me about where this band can go and kind of where I can take my songwriting, where we can take our sound and kind of, I suppose, the stories I can tell.
Something, taking your stories to a USA tour, something like that. I don't know.
Tell me about it, man. That's been what I've been working on for years now.
I feel like I've seen you guys post about it on social media. That, man, US tour is coming, and I'm sure it's like, I can't imagine it's easy being out of New Zealand.
We're trying so hard, man. Look, it's coming, and I promise you it'll happen. I just can't tell you when, man. Like we're trying, and we're working on it, and it'll get there, and it will be glorious once it happens.
Yeah, the state of the world is very fickle right now, so I am cautiously, you're constantly awaiting the day I see a Virginia date, because I am buying that ticket immediately.
All right, I'll make it happen. I will. It'll either kill me or it'll happen. All right, done.
Mad respect.
Going back to the album, I'm kind of curious about the rollout for this album, because Give 'Em Hell was released well over a year ago at this point. So at that point, was the album intentionally, I don't want to say delayed to roll out over the course of over a year, but was it planned to take this long to release the album? And when Give 'Em Hell came out, was like the entire album fully written and almost ready to go at that point? Or was Give 'Em Hell the start of it?
So after we released Secrets, we looked at it and realized, that the world's a different place now, and the way that we consume music is different, and the way that music kind of exists is different. And we released Secrets with the kind of, I suppose, traditional, I just did the kind of air quotes thing and then realized you can't see me. We did that kind of traditional rollout in which, there's 3 singles and then a focus track when the album drops. But then I looked at it and Dave and I, the guitarist in the band, looked at it and went, well, hold on, that's not, there was kind of 6 or 7 or 8 other tracks on that album that didn't get their kind of chance in the sun. And we're not necessarily writing these songs as album tracks, on streaming platforms and the way that, we all listen to music now. everything's essentially, can be a single. And we kind of went, well, hold on, like, why don't we give these tracks their moment? We just basically we realized that the traditional kind of release cycle didn't work for us. So we decided, well, let's be ambitious and let's try something different, and let's release almost the entire album as a single with a music video, with everything, and just really go all out. Like, full disclosure, it was meant to be slightly quicker. It was only meant to be a year. So we're like, I think now Please Just Breathe came out like pretty much bang on a year since Give 'Em Hell came out. So we're only a couple of months behind schedule. But that was just basically because we got really ambitious with music videos. We got really ambitious about it all. And it's like it's an intense process. Like every single, like I just said single twice in a row. Every single that you release is amazing, a massive kind of effort, and there's a lot that goes into it. And so I think by the time we toured Europe and released 6 singles and then got Please Just Breathe out in the world, like, we were just a bit tired. So we kind of slowed the train down slightly this year. But it wasn't an accident. The album was done when we released Give 'Em Hell. But the idea was we wanted to give all these songs their space and their kind of their time in the sun. And almost as if in a sense, like we were kind of giving you pieces of a jigsaw puzzle ahead of time. And then you get the album and you get the remainder of the tracks and you get kind of the full picture. I suppose, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think a lot of bands are starting to realize that like the traditional 3 songs and then the album comes out, Rollout, just isn't as effective, I guess, anymore. With how
especially in age where like playlisting is like very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just looked at these tracks on Secrets and was like, man, I just wish that they'd had a, because obviously you're really tight fans, your diehard fans, they listen to the album, a lot, but you don't get the chance to kind of bring these tracks to a new audience if they're just the album tracks until someone stumbles upon a song and goes, I'm going to go listen to that album. You kind of end up with all these extra tracks, which is great and it's awesome. But I think we wanted to see what it was like, what it looked like if people got more of an album ahead of time, and we gave these songs their kind of chance to do that. And it also meant that we got to do full music videos for almost every track on the album, which I'm super proud of because it's kind of a big part of what we do. Like the kind of cinematic aspect of our music is really important. And I think to have these visual companions with the songs that kind of tell the stories in a different way as well is incredible. And you're going to see on release day the kind of last, or the next one. I won't say last because who knows what we're going to do, but the last one of this album before the album comes out. And it kind of, I suppose, is going to be a really sort of beautiful calling card for the album. So look forward to that.
I definitely noticed that your guys' music videos for this album cycle have been really nice, especially the one for Please Just Breathe.
That was really good.
It brought me back to the To Tell You the Truth music video.
Okay, well that's impressive because that's the same director.
So that makes sense. Yeah,
it's directed by the same guy. This amazing guy from LA called Josh Maybe. He's like a brother to me now. But basically, years ago he messaged us on YouTube and was like, "Man, I love your tunes. I'd love to work with you. I want to make a music video for you." And I was like, "Okay, random man that's just messaged me. Why not? Let's do it." And so we jumped on a call and just instantly clicked. Like just got on like a house on fire straight away. And I just was like, look, I'm going to send you a whole heap of tracks. You just decide what one you want to do. And he vibed instantly with To Tell You the Truth. Like To Tell You the Truth was never ever going to be a single because it's like a 5-minute song. It's got a 1.5 minutes like really chill instrumental intro. It was just like this song that we loved that was kind of one day going to be an album track that we loved playing at our live shows because it had so much intensity to it. And he was like, "Man, I think we can do something awesome with this." And I was like, "All right, you go for it, dude. You pick that ball up and run with it." And he just went wild and kind of, and the rest is, I suppose, to be cliched as possible, the rest is history because that's our highest viewed video And so I suppose we owe a lot to him in the sense of the band's success, because that's where a lot of people have found us. And it was only because he had the kind of the foresight and the bravery, I suppose, to make a 5-minute music video and just hope like hell that people would watch it, or didn't care if people would watch it. And so we work with him on everything. So basically we've got 3 different directors that we work with. We've got Josh in LA. We've got an amazing guy called Nick Kazakis and his team, which is Visible Studios in Melbourne. And then we've got 2 incredible guys, Matt and Taylor from Below Studios in New Zealand. And so when this album was ready and when it was finished, I basically just sent all 3 of them the album and said, okay, we're going to release basically this entire album as singles. We're going to make a shit ton of music videos. So everyone just pick your favorite 2 and then tell me. And then once you've done that, I'll tell you what the songs are about. But I want you to start, pick your favorite 2 songs, start vibing on what it is you want to do. And then we'll work the rest out from there. And so that's what we did. And so Josh picked up Please Just Breathe and went absolutely wild with it. And yeah, it's amazing that you've connected it, to tell you the truth, because that is his style and that's what he does.
I feel like just the emotional weight of both of those songs really comes through.
Yeah, he's an incredible storyteller in that light. And like I say, as I said, we connect really well, and we connected really well straight away. And so, I mean, obviously, Please Just Breathe is a really personal song for me. Like it's all about the day that my dad passed away. And so, which was a pretty wild story in itself. And so I sat down with him, unfortunately, on Zoom, because that's how the world works. And we talked through it, and I talked through the entire story. And he went, all right, I got it. I'm going to tell this story. And so the whole idea is about, I mean, obviously the song is about time and wanting to have more time. And for me, wanting my dad to keep breathing, because I was trying to get to him at the hospital and I was 5 hours away. So really difficult kind of situation, which is the whole Please Just Breathe kind of mantra is what I had going through, just stay alive until I get there type thing. And so he wanted to kind of tell that story in the best way he possibly could. And I mean, obviously he brings this really amazing kind of stunt aspect and all of his elements to it. And he kind of just told this really beautiful, kind of heartbreaking, but kind of beautiful at the same time story of a father and a son, which was amazing.
That's a lot of very cool insight. There's a part of me that eventually wants to get into editing music videos.
Yeah,
so
right.
Maybe filming them as well one day. So like hearing all this like background insight on the process is really cool to me.
Amazing. Well, if you want to do it, you should. That's just that's kind of where I'm at in life at this point. If you want to do something, just do it.
Yeah.
Work it out. We're kind of in this amazing age of like technology where if you want to learn how to do something, you pretty much can.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't have to go and study for 5 years to kind of learn how to do it. Whilst that's amazing and that's, incredibly helpful, it's not a necessity anymore. Shit, you can just learn how to do stuff by watching YouTube tutorials, right?
I definitely learned more about video editing on YouTube than my 4 years at college. So
there we go. There we go.
You had mentioned Zoom as part of the process for creating the music video. How much did the pandemic affect the writing process for the album?
Look, I suppose originally, so I mean, Secrets came out in 2019, which it doesn't feel like it was that long ago, which is pretty wild. But our plans for Secrets was to drop that came out in the back end of 2019, and we were meant to be starting touring all through the world in 2020. And of course that became impossible. We also then ended up locked down. So I've got 2 kids and they were quite young when that happened. So basically that, like, as far as writing and stuff was concerned, that just shut me out for like a year. Dave, who the 2 of us kind of write most of the songs together, he had a kid on the way, but didn't have a kid yet. So he just knuckled down and started writing. So he kind of started writing a lot of this album, a lot of the music for this album, in that kind of time before his first baby arrived. And then I dragged the chain for a couple of years. And then when we got out of lockdown and didn't have my kids climbing over me every day, all day, I did my thing, and but I suppose I probably wasn't quite ready to write these stories because I suppose a lot of it is kind of looking at the state of the world at the time, and I suppose it kind of just consistently fell apart to more and more, to greater and greater levels over the course of that time. So it kind of, I suppose it, in a way, it kind of helped me write this crazy story that the Lighthouse became. But yeah, I mean, obviously we were gutted that we didn't get to tour, but without the pandemic, the Collab project wouldn't have happened. We, people like Sonny from POD and Kellen Quinn were sitting at home not able to tour. So, chances are in normal life pre-pandemic, I wouldn't have got a reply from either of them. But because they were sitting at home and not on tour, it meant that they went, hold on, I like this idea. We can jump on board that. And of course, I mean, the Collab project came because, we've always found that people connect with our music, and we get messages all the time about, what our music's done for people and how it's sort of helped their life in a way, or in some instances tell us that it saved their life. But I think the pandemic kind of made us go, well, this is we've got this thing that's so important to people. How can we do more? And so that's where, like I say, the Collab project is a kind of, it's more than an EP. It's kind of a mental health initiative, and that was really born because of the pandemic, and something that we did to try and, I suppose, help people kind of realize that they're not alone in a time in which we felt pretty isolated and alone. So we've had some. Look, I mean, I suppose if I'm talking silver linings here, we got a fair bit of, it gave me a lot of content, I suppose, a lot of ideas and a lot of stories to tell out the back of that. And I suppose that's possibly why the Lighthouse is the way it is.
Oh yeah, no, it's like the pandemic, that definitely messed up everyone's time schedules and whatnot. It's not like you guys weren't doing anything, especially with the Collab project and the singles that followed after. But yeah, it was definitely very important. The Collab project is such an important message, so I'm glad that you guys were able to create that in such a difficult time.
The pandemic is mostly slowed down, but from what I'm gathering, there's like, the Collab project isn't dead. Like, you guys would be open to doing it again, sort of thing, to try and continue to spread that message.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I think the Collab project is something that will now be kind of forever intertwined with the band. And but it's not always going to be the same. Look, the message will always be the same, and the message is about sort of reminding our friends and our fans and our followers that no matter what they're going through, they never have to do it alone. Like, it's not something that you have to do alone, which is why the idea of the Collab project was born, about sort of bringing people together to kind of realize that these things that we're going through are all normal things, and that it, we're all kind of there, and that you don't have to feel alone. And I think, look, no matter how much better the world gets around mental health issues, it's still going to be a real thing, and it's still going to be something that, look, we're never going to be fixed. We're never going to magically go, right, everyone's mental health is great now. Mm-hmm. But I think for us, it's something that's super important. And we will always be really proud to kind of have that as a part of the band. And to be honest, I mean, just full disclosure, we're already kind of working on the next part of it. So, I suppose watch this space, right?
I was gonna ask, like, hypothetically for a collab project too, any like features that you'd be interested in having, but if it's in progress, I don't want to spoil what could potentially be on it.
Look, I'm not going to tell you who's on it. And look, we're not. It's not finished. It's just we've just started building what it is we want it to look like. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to give away any more than that. But I'm incredibly excited about it. And there's a long way to go before we kind of get it to a place in which we, where we want it to be. But
I can also imagine you probably want some time for the Lighthouse as an album to just exist in its own space, give it its time in the spotlight before you already move on to the next thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, both of those. Look, I mean, I'm so excited to have the Lighthouse into the, look, it's a really hard part about being, I suppose, anything in life these days. Like, you kind of never really take that time to celebrate. Like I find,
Mhm.
especially in within the music industry, it's kind of like by the time by the time something's released, you're kind of already working on the next thing
Mhm.
because time is so important and everything's so time sensitive in the way that it works. So you, I'm so used to like getting a video finished and I'm already scheduling the next shoot and trying to make sure that I've got everyone sorted out type thing, or getting a song out and I'm already planning the next release. Whereas with this, I'm really excited to get this album out into the world. I mean, as I say, it's been like at least a 2 year process to get it out into the world and just kind of enjoy the fact that that's happening. I'm going to try and not read too many reviews, and I'm just going to try and just kind of really get excited about the fact that we've done it and we've got it out there, and kind of take a moment to kind of breathe with it all before I dive headfirst into whatever the next thing's going to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Take all the time you need, especially after all this.
I'll try not to take too much though, because it's a drug and I'm addicted, for better or worse.
Were there any challenges or takeaways from writing the album that will influence future works, like the quote unquote upcoming um, iterations of the Collab Project or any future albums?
Look, I think everything is challenging. Like it's not like writing an album's hard enough, recording an album's hard enough, release it, then you got to release it and work out how to make people hear it. Like I mean, as I say, like the Lighthouse happened in a way because and the way that it's happened because we saw what happened with Secrets and we're like, well, let's do that differently. And so there's going to be things that happen with the Lighthouse that we go, well, we're not going to do that the same way next time. Um, it just kind of, I suppose that's just learning from anything that you do, and it's not even that something's wrong. It's just that things progress, right? And the way in which we do things and the way in which the world consumes things and listens to music is constantly changing. You only have to look at when this band first started, like Facebook and Instagram were the kind of they were the biggest things, and but even YouTube was different. Um, Even I suppose, I mean, this band's been around for 9 years now, which sounds scary to say. And even in that 9 years, the way that we've done things changed like 1,000 times. You kind of constantly relearning how to do all of it. So I think we'll just kind of keep looking at the way that we've done things in the past and go, all right, well, how do we do that differently in the future? Not necessarily better, just different, I suppose. To kind of, it's not kind of copy and paste and go, let's just hit that same process that we did with the last one and just see how that goes. I think there'll be different ways in which we do the next one. There'll be different ways in which we write the next one. There'll be different ways in which we release the next one, and I suppose we'll just kind of keep progressing as that happens.
You had mentioned the progressing. Has yours individually, your band's musical taste changed since the first songs of the album or of the band to now when the Lighthouse drops?
Look, I think like as far as my own musical taste goes, like it changes constantly, and it's for me it's predominantly mood based. Like it kind of I still like all the same stuff that I liked when I started writing this album to now when I'm releasing it. But I kind of if I'm feeling a certain way, I want to listen to hip hop. If I'm feeling a different way, I want to listen to sort of chill acoustic stuff. If I'm feeling a certain way, I want to listen to heavy music. I think like I take a pretty massive inspiration from bands like Bring Me the Horizon and their sort of way in which they continually manage to kind of, I suppose, reimagine themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive sort of inspiration for us as a band. It's like, I suppose, how do we keep doing things differently that are going to be interesting for you guys? Like how do we keep you on your toes so you hear something and go, ooh, rather than go, oh, I've heard that before. I like it because it's the same as the last thing, but so I suppose it's really just taking inspiration from all of these these artists that, you know, I suppose are doing similar stuff to us in which they like finding elements from other music that they love and going, well, let's break the rules and put that in there because there's no rules anymore, right? And so I think that's where having, you know, most people have relatively eclectic music taste. And so I suppose it's going, okay, well, if there's no rules anymore and I can do that there and I can do this here, how far can we take it? And I think that's always been kind of like one of our main sort of goals whenever we're in the studio. It's not like we've kind of got this this idea that it's not done, it's not finished, it's not ready until we feel uncomfortable. And I know that sounds weird, but like until it kind of makes us feel uncomfortable, it's probably not quite right yet. You know, it's probably a little bit safe. So we kind of try and push these tunes and these recordings to a point where we're going, crap, have we gone too far? And then maybe we're pretty close, you know?
Like, I feel like the breakdown and Give 'em Hell, like, I remember the first time I heard that, I'm like, what the hell have I just listened to? Sort of thing. Like, very untraditional.
Yeah, I mean, that was a hard thing to write. It was a hard thing to get right. It was a hard thing to kind of get to sit in a way that kind of made sense. Yeah, but it's, you know, it's amazing, and it's every time we generally start our live show with that, and you kind of get to smash people in the face with it really quickly, and then kind of move on. Yeah, look, I love that section, and I remember hearing it for the first time as well, going, okay, all right, let's get weird here, which is what I love.
Yeah, that's awesome. If you had to pick a favorite song on the album,
this old question. All right, keep going. A favorite song on the album. Now you've got to remember that, like, this is my baby.
Yeah,
you basically just asked me to pick which of my kids is my favorite.
I mean, it has to be asked.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough. Look, it differs and it changes and it's all sorts of things. Like, I think, look, tomorrow we've got, you know, obviously the whole album comes out tomorrow, but we've got this video for the title track is called The Lighthouse. It's kind of, I suppose, the overarching sort of idea of what the entire thing's all about. So I love that song, and it's always going to have a pretty special place for me. I think, I mean, as well. I mean, but it's also super chill. Like, so there's part of me that's like, oh, I don't want to say the ballad because, you know, I love the heavy songs, and I love, like, I think Goddess is probably one of my favorites. But then there's reasons why every song is a favorite, and so it's really hard to kind of narrow those down. So like tracks like Misery, right? So Misery's got my mum and my wife singing on it. So the choir at the start of Misery is just my mum and my wife. So my mum turned 60, and she, like, we went and did this like crazy holiday, and like I took her skydiving and stuff. And so she got all crazy, and I was like, right, well, I'm gonna bring you in the sorry, Siri's just popped up. So I was like, I'm gonna get you in the studio, and you're gonna come and record a metal song and do this and do that. And so, you know, there's so many things about this album that, like, I kind of look back and go, that's, you know, that hold like really beautiful memories. I mean, there's lots about the album that kind of hold like some pretty dark places as well, but I suppose, as I say, like, and I've always kind of made really clear, is like songwriting and music is my therapy. So it's kind of like my way of getting these things out. So in answer to your question, I've not even remotely answered your question.
Hey, it's totally fine.
You mentioned a couple of songs there, so
songs.
It's a passable answer.
Look, I think all the tracks that you haven't heard yet, or that you guys have heard that everyone else hasn't heard yet, I'm really excited about. So we started playing. I suppose the beauty of a new album, there's always this moment, because you never get to play all the songs, right? You never get to play them all live. So we've got a release show coming up a week after the album comes out, and we're going to play the album in full from start to finish. And so we've been rehearsing that album, and there's probably like there's at least a track or two that I didn't quite realize how I possibly might not have realized how much I loved them until I started really getting them in a live setting. So look, I'm excited, and I want to know what everyone else's favorite. Look, I don't get, who cares about me? I wrote the bloody things. Everyone else, tell me what you like.
I think tentatively my favorite song on the album is Misery.
All right.
That's
was
probably the
really
one I've
good.
listened to the most over the past year or so since it's been out. It's the one that sticks in my mind the most.
So
Which
when
song
we
was the most rewarding? Sorry to cut you off. Which song was the most rewarding, or like had the quickest turnaround from writing to like being made as a full track?
Goddess. So we were in LA, and David written this kind of like, just this kind of like really small little sort of few bars of like a kind of poppy hip hoppy kind of thing. And so we were sitting with our producer Gladius, who we were working through the album with, and we only had a week in LA to finish the album, and there was a couple of tracks that we needed to finish, and we had this kind of idea of this kind of hip hop-esque kind of track that we wanted to happen, and we had this kind of idea already, and then we got to the studio the next morning, and our producer Gladys, who's actually Dave's younger brother, and who's worked with like everyone. He's worked with like Justin Bieber and Demi Lovato and like basically, you know, everyone
Big
within
names.
this pop world.
Such a small world.
And he goes, "Oh, I woke up in the middle of the night and I kind of had that hip hop idea that you'd started, and I kind of just ran with it a little bit." And he'd kind of written this intro and started to think, and we heard it and went right, boom, and everyone, the three of us, just kind of connected, and this song was kind of written and complete in about like an hour or so. Like it was just one of those kind of lightning in a bottle moments. We had the melody. The lyrics just kind of flowed out straight away, and it's really like, you know, it's a really lyrical song, but it just kind of I kind of had this story immediately in my head, and it kind of, I suppose for me, it's slightly like a linchpin in the album as far as what the story tells, because it's kind of where this kind of Lighthouse kind of comes from, and I suppose like a turning point within the story in which you go from sort of being quite dark to all of a sudden kind of seeing hope, I suppose, in something. And that one just came about really quick.
Justin, I'm not gonna let it slide. You didn't answer what's your favorite song on the album.
Look, I was hoping you would pass that over and just kind of keep going.
So you're gonna tell me I've got to pick my favorite, but you're not gonna do that.
My favorite's probably Burn. I would say between Burn and Give Them Hell. Give Them Hell was super surprising to hear. On first listen, and I'll always like remember that first time. But I really love how catchy Burn is.
Yeah, look, Burn for me is one of my favorites too, because I just love that kind of I love the juxtaposition of it. You know, there's so many. It's so heavy in parts, but it's also insanely poppy. It's kind of like, for me, it's almost like if like the Backstreet Boys wrote a metal song. And I think that's kind of what, I suppose that's what we got excited about with this album. Not the Backstreet Boys writing a metal song, but just how we could.
Hey, I'd still be down for that.
Yeah, I'm into it, man. Maybe on the Collab Project. But I suppose that would be wild, by the way. But I suppose it's like that idea of just going, this sounds like this, but what happens if we put this in it? And I kind of like, even though we started writing this music with this kind of, it started with this really sort of heavy, you know, it's the song just sort of came about from that riff, which was quite heavy. But I just always heard these real sort of poppy melodies over it, and I think that's what I love about it. But you know, it's got screaming, but then it's just this kind of like really kind of pop tune, which I think, and live, it's probably my favorite live track to play at the moment because it's fun. And like we were in Europe last year, and we released it the day before the tour started, and literally the next day the tour started and people were singing it back to us, which was just like, it was mind blowing. Like it had been out, like we're on tour for like 3 weeks, and everywhere we went, everyone was screaming the words to that song, and it had literally just dropped.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Random question, but obviously Secrets, the opening track on that was Let It Burn. Now this album just has Burn. Is there any, like, do you just like songs that involve burning?
I suppose there's you know, there's something really look, I think as far as the story was concerned with this one, and I don't, but I kind of saw like so Burn is kind of like a continuation of Let It Burn. Like this, as far as the stories that I'm telling on those songs, it's almost like a part two. Like so, Let It Burn was all about seeing these things that were happening in the world and kind of calling them out and going, it's our job to kind of not just allow that to exist and happen. Whereas Burn is almost like it's tongue in cheek, but it's almost as if like, time's passed since that moment and we've just realized that it's gone too far and there's no coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like a continuation of the story. And I don't mean for it to be, taken uber seriously, but I suppose, the things we're talking about there are pretty serious. So that's kind of that's where that one is. It like I kind of when I started getting this idea in my head of what I wanted to go, it really just became this continuation of Let It Burn, and in which it was just like, all right, everything's screwed. The world's gone too far. We tried, but clearly not hard enough, and we failed. So now it's just time to sit back and just watch it burn. And I suppose at the time when I was writing it, it did kind of feel like the world was just like burning itself down, and that was it. And we were just going towards this inevitable conclusion in which I still don't think we've sort of.
There's still a lot of problems going on in the world these days.
Every day it looks like we're another step closer to that. As hopeless as that sounds.
Every time you reference that, it harkens back to Oh No, the breakdown in Oh No. I just remember like every line just referencing stuff that was going on during that time period. And
yeah, well, that was just like a kind of a diary, I suppose, of 2020, and just going, look, this is how insane the world is, and like, I suppose with that particular song, I was like, how can I get every insane thing that's happening in the world right now into one song?
In conclusion, I just thought it was a little interesting that you have two songs that are called Burn, basically.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely. If there was more scope within the likes of Spotify and Apple Music and stuff to do things. If originally I wanted to title that song was still Burn, but have Let It crossed out. So it was as if cool. to make it a continuation of Let It Burn. So you kind of made it quite clear that it's kind of part two. But it's too hard to do that.
And I also imagine with like the way that Spotify playlisting works now, having a song that's just called Burn might have like a wider appeal than a song that like hints at it being a continuation. Because if you haven't heard part one, like maybe you're not as interested in hearing part two. Like you have to go listen to part one first. I don't know.
Yeah, true. I suppose like tying it to, like, for those that are interested enough, they'll find the link and they'll find how it's kind of connected. But it's not like the be all and end all of the song. Like you don't need to know part one to know part two.
I guess to sort of start wrapping this up, is there anything about any of the songs on the album that we haven't really had a chance to talk about yet that you want to make mention of? Some sort of behind the scenes detail of any of the songs, or I don't know, just if there's any song we haven't talked about on the album yet that you want to shine a light on.
Look, it's kind of. It's the whole thing. Like I just really love kind of seeing the whole thing as a kind of overarching piece. And like, I want everyone to pick their favorites and go and listen to whatever songs they want and listen to them a gazillion times so that my streaming numbers go up. But like, I kind of really like the idea that if you do get a chance. And I know this is really grandiose, and it's a crazy thing to kind of ask of people, especially in a day and age in which we consume things really quickly. But if you do get a chance, sit down and listen to the thing from start to finish, and kind of let that kind of story kind of work out what that story means for you and try and find it, because the message is really just about it's about finding your lighthouse and finding your thing that can kind of pull you out of a dark place. And I think that's pretty important for everyone, especially in as we've just talked about the state of the world. Mm-hmm. So I think being able to find that thing that kind of that grounds you and kind of brings you out of the places that that look, we don't want to be. That's pretty important. And look, that doesn't necessarily need to be something that or someone or that is the same in every iteration. But I think, being able to find that thing that kind of helps you to come back to a good place is pretty important.
I can definitely vouch for that. Having a safe space is very helpful when you're going through it.
For sure, man. For sure.
Justin, did you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No.
Any other discussion points?
No, not that I can think of.
All right, awesome. Well, Mikey, thank you again for joining us for the podcast today. New album, The Lighthouse, will be out by the time this episode is up. So if you haven't listened to it yet, absolutely go give it a stream on whatever streaming service. It's very much worth the listen. Be sure to follow us on social media at HivemindRadio _ on Instagram and Twitter, Hivemind Radio on YouTube, Hivemind Recap Podcast on Spotify, and you guys are Written by Wolves on all the socials as well.
That's it.
Yeah, that's gonna be it. Thank you for joining us on the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, guys. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Dope, man. Until next time, I look forward to it.